Let's ask an interesting question. Is voting rational? First off, let's start with an example. What does a rational choice look like? Imagine a student who is studying for a math test. He reasonably expects that the more he studies, the higher his grade will be. Since he highly values that grade, the small cost of studying is worth a large benefit. Therefore, for the student, studying is rational. Now, studying for an election is very different. It does not yield a direct benefit for the voter. Now, that word direct is very important here. It takes away the personal incentive. Once this incentive is taken away, voters relax their standards and put in less effort. It is much easier to confirm one's bias and appeal to emotion. In other words, being ignorant is actually the rational position here. In large national elections, a single person's vote is very unlikely to change the results, and this is why there is really no direct benefit. In the United States presidential elections, the odds of this happening have been estimated to be about 1 in 60 million. If you happen to live in a swing state, these odds are a little better, but still about 1 in 10 million. So how does this manifest itself in results? Well, if this group irrationality was somewhat random, then this wouldn't matter so much. There has to be some sort of systematic irrationality, and what we find is that the systematic irrationality tends towards less thinking, more appeals to emotion, and less effort. Now, here is an example of that. From the 2012 exit polls of the US presidential election, voters were asked which of 4 characteristics they valued the most in a president. Shares my values, is a strong leader, has a vision for the future, and cares about me. Mitt Romney had an advantage in the first 3 of these characteristics, and 79% of voters chose one of these 3. However, for cares about me, which the other 21% chose, Barack Obama had a whopping lead of 63 percentage points, and this explains why Obama won. Most voters would rather have a nice guy who might be a somewhat incompetent president. They'd rather have a president who they can imagine themselves hanging out with and having a beer with, rather than having a competent president who is a mean guy. And what if many people voted? Wouldn't that change the results? What if more people were highly educated, we had a better electorate? Yes, this would change the results, but that is somewhat irrelevant to the personal decision making. This is an example of the fallacy of division for those who are interested. And the fallacy of division says basically me as an individual is different from the group as a whole. Picture this, little purple guy is me. I am one out of many people, and all these people could vote on election day. And if all these people were educated and voted, that would change the results. However, me, just a little purple guy over here, is sitting in my apartment, and it might take me just a half hour to vote. But if the only thing I care about is changing the election, then that small cost of taking the time to vote is still not worth it. Me as an individual will still stay in and not vote because I know that one single vote in that moment will not change anything. Now, is there any value in voting at all? There are certainly critics of this type of analysis. Some would say that it is too simplistic, and there are other benefits of voting. Now, we just considered the case of changing the results of an election. And if your goal is to change the results of an election, it doesn't really make much sense to be too educated and to vote. Now, The Economist seems to take this position in one of its articles. It gave an example of a pre-K class in 2008 that held a mock election. The pre-K students voted on who they would rather see as president. 16 voted for Barack Obama. One girl had a write-in vote for Mommy and Daddy. One boy had a write-in vote for Superman, and 0 voted for McCain. Now, these results are interesting. They can give us some insight into what the children are being taught, how they're raised, even though this result obviously has no direct impact in reality. Now, even if I do accept this, this doesn't change the fact that ignorance is rational. So even if we do accept the fact that there is some value in voting and that we should become educated and vote here, that doesn't change the fact that the electorate as a whole will vote for less educated policies.